slice through the enemy with their unforgiving wings. Run! They will raging!
What is up, guys? My name is Alibaba, and today we're going to be looking at all the cards that were revealed in set 15, so you guys can know exactly what's coming and so you can prepare for it. We did go over the cards that were released prior to the set, but now we have all the cards in the database, so we can actually take a look at everything that was released, even the cards that weren't announced with the prior announcements that we did in the previous video. A lot of these cards are going to be the cards that we already discussed, so we'll try to speed along through those, and we'll go through basically everything that you want to look at when it comes to what's coming in the next set. To start things off, we're going to be looking at Gold Paladin support. So for Gold Paladins, the first card we got was Scarlet Line Cacaria. I believe I went over it. If not, then I'll still go over the effects just to make sure you guys have a clear understanding of what it is in case you didn't watch the previous video. So Caria's effect is Rearguard Circle. It's a Forerunner, and then Rearguard Circle. When you attack by an Ezel, this unit boosted hits a Vanguard. You can blast one and put it into your soul to look at the top 4 cards of your deck and call it to his rest. It's pretty good for setting up either defense in case you don't have it, or it's also really good for just preparing for the next turn. Assuming, of course, you don't play against a deck that retires or a Link Joker that can lock your units. But even Link Joker will sometimes have to wait a little bit before they can start locking too much of your stuff. This is a pretty decent starter. Whether or not you use this starter instead of the right chain starter or even the Grade 3 Searcher is still for debate, but I'll at least give it a shot because it does sound like a pretty good starter for me, in my opinion. Grade 1. Next up, Grade 1, Sacred Twin, Beast Lion, White Lion. It's just a 7k self-damage rate if your Vanguard's an Ezel. That's all that you really need to know about it. It's a really good card. White Rainbow Liberator Ballon. When your Rearguard Circle, when your Blast Red Liberator is placed in the same column as this unit, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, countercharge 1. It's really good. It's basically what Dorant is for Revengers. I don't see it not being stable. I personally think a lot of most Liberator decks will most likely run the playset of it, just to imitate the retire power that Revengers has, but for Liberators. And you got one of the cards that wasn't revealed but got added is Knight of Passion Tor, or Torre, however you want to pronounce that. It's basically a 10k attacker on the front row. It's a 10k attacker for Ezel. Pretty straightforward. You got Flying Sword Liberator Gorlois. Remove a Ganslaw from your drop zone to have one of your Ganslaw get plus 5,000 power. Pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, no, it does not return the trigger to the deck. It just removes it. And then you got Shark Point Liberator Gold Lancer. When placed, discard a Grade 3 from your hand to add a Ganslaw from your deck to your hand. This is pretty good, especially if you don't want to run the Grade 3 Searcher as the starter, because then if you happen to draw into a Grade 3 you don't care about, or maybe you draw too many of, let's say, for example, like, for example, too many Wolfang Armors or something like that. You can discard one of them to add the break ride in case you don't have it, and then you can set up the break ride that much easier. Next up, we got Papalugo. When you attack by a unit with Limit Break 4, this unit boosted hits a Vanguard. Kind of best to draw card. Oh, that's pretty neat. So basically, if it boosts a Limit Break 4 unit and that unit hits a Vanguard, you can CB2 to draw. Pretty straightforward. It does have to hit a Vanguard. Unfortunately, it can't just hit anything. So keep that in mind. Next up, Grade 2, Sacred Twin Beast Black Lion. It's the Grade 2 version of the Grade 1, so it's a 9k self-damager for Ezels. Pretty straightforward. There's not much to discuss there. Red Rainbow Liberator Ballin. When your Blast Red Liberator Rearguard is placed, your Vanguard's a Liberator, plus 5,000 power. It can see use, especially if you don't have some of the other Grade 2s, but if you have a playset of all the other supports, like maybe 12k attackers for that Link Joker matchup, or even 10k attackers if you really want to. You can probably swap this in for 10k attackers, maybe. It's going to be up to preference. Burning Scale Knight Elliewood. Rearguard Circle. When your Grade 3 Ezel Vanguard is placed, counterblast one's called top card of attack. So this is going to be like another one of those cards similar to Lawrence Force and Tilda, where you're placing them in the back row prior to your grade 3 ride to then call a top card. What that top card is, we don't know, but if you play Gansalot Zenith as your heal, but this has to be in an Ezel deck, and then if you're playing Gansalot Zenith, you're just asking to run 9k vanillas. So that's iffy. It's a top deck card, so people are going to see it the way it is. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they hate it, depending on what they get. Zoigo Liberator, Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle. When the attack by your other Liberator hits a Vanguard, counterblast 1 to get plus 5,000 power. It's pretty good, or it's decent, but I don't see it getting too much play unless you're playing a budget deck, or you really like Darkos. Blue Axe Knight Taliesin. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, this unit gets plus 10,000 power. Alright. Similar to Elliewood, you'll be placing it prior to your grade 3 ride, but I don't see it getting much. Look, playtime. And then you got Salvation Line Grand Ezel Scissors. And then break 4, counterblast 2 to unlock all of your locked cards. And then it has the Ezel effect of look at the top 4, call a card. And then it also has not exactly a plan effect, but if you have 5 rear guards, it gets plus 10,000 power and plus 1 critical. It gets a better power boost than Planet Ezel, and it also gets a crit, but you have to have 5 rear guards. And obviously, at the end of the turn, you countercharge 1. So it technically counts as a CB1, but you can't really use it too many times because to pay for it, you have to pay CB2. But you will get refunded half of the cost at the end of the turn. And then this ability can be activated without unlocking cards. So you don't have to have locked cards, so don't worry about not being able to use this against non-link Joker matchups. And obviously, it has pretty straightforward. I think it's the same effect as Ezel, if I'm not mistaken. It's during your turn that you can get plus 1,000 power for each of your rear guards, and then it's cross-red with Ezel. So it's hitting numbers, basically. And then we finally got Gansalot Zenith. Liberator Bonds Gansalot Zenith. Limit Break 4, once unit attacks, use CB1 and put a rear guard to the bottom of your deck to call a top card of your deck. And then that unit gets plus 10,000 power. So you can return your triggers and then top deck, try to fish for something else, and offer CB1. One of its better effects, in my opinion, is when placed from your deck, you can return it to call a Blaster Relay Liberator from your deck. If your deck has no Blaster Relay Liberator, call it from the drop zone. This is basically what makes Gansalot Zenith most likely your heal. Some people debate on running it in Ezel as well, which does have some merit, but then you're forced to run Blaster Relay Liberator as a vanilla, basically. And that's just wasting grade 2 slots in a deck that has a lot of options for grade 2s. But in Liberators, this card is amazing. Here we go, Royal Paladins. You got the Sanctuary Light cards, the grade 0 Ride Chain. When rolled upon, look at the top 7, at a grade 1, or at a grade 2, or a grade 3. If you didn't add a card to your hand, you call it. Pretty straightforward, Ride Chain. Grade 1, Sanctuary Light Little Storm, same thing. Ride Chain Fixer, grade 2. If you ride a grade 2 on top of it that isn't the grade 2 Sanctuary of Light, the Terminator, you can try to fix it by looking at the top 7, and if you find the grade 2, you can ride it instead. And you got Security, Jewel Knight, Alwayne. This is the one I was talking about prior. You remove an Ashley from a drop zone type when you actually get plus 5,000 power. Once again, not recycling Ashley, just removing it from the drop zone. So you can use those triggers still. And you got the grade 2 Sanctuary of Light. Obviously it's a Ride Chain card, so it gets a plus 1,000 power if you have the Ride Chain. And then when placed, if Little Storm is in your store, you call a Sanctuary of Light from your deck. It's any Sanctuary of Light, so you can call grade 2 if you want. You can call a booster. You could even call grade 3 if you technically want. But most of the time, you'll be getting a grade 2 or a grade 1. Really good effect. Really good Ride Chain. Especially good for a budget build. Then you got Banning Jewel Knight Miranda. During your turn, Fingers and Ashley gets plus 2,000 power, so it's an 11k unit. And then when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, if your Fingers and Ashley, one of your units get plus 2,000 power. In addition, if all cards in your deck are Jewel Knight, look at top 3 cards of your deck and add a card to your hand. So it works similar to how the Blau starter works, where you can search your top 3 and add a card. But there are obviously the requirements. You have to have all Jewel Knights in your deck, which means if you want to play Miranda for her search effect, you would literally have to not be running Blaster Blade and Gancelot, which for me is fine because one, I don't have a playset of Gancelot, so I don't really care for him. And two, I actually prefer Pure Jewel Knights even if I did have Blaster Blade and Gancelot. So I'm actually going to be running Miranda. And then you got Uncompromising Knight Ideal. It's the one to get plus 4,000 power when it attacks. It's one of your typical common units. Probably won't see play outside of a budget build. You got your Unlocker in Knight of Extravagance 2 Lees. When placed, unlock one of your locked cards, and then Limit Break 4. If you have exactly 4 rear guards, you Soul Blast 1 and Counter Blast 1 to call any card from the top of your deck to an empty rear guard circle. This effect is really good if you have to ride into him, so he's not a terrible ride. Because you can call a Spirit, and then that's just taking out an Intercept. Priority being, obviously, Spirit. It's the first one that comes to mind to a lot of people. And then you got the Grade 3 Sanctuary of Light. Start your battle phase, all of your Sanctuary Light get plus 3,000 power. Obviously, that's Limit Break. And then when placed, call a Sanctuary Light from your deck. Once again, give me any Sanctuary of Light. So you can keep calling Grade 2s and Grade 1s. And if you happen to continually draw into him, you just keep riding him and calling another Sanctuary Light. So it's not bad to draw multiple of him. Not bad at all. And then obviously 1+1K if the Grade 2 is in the soul. Now we got another Sanctuary Light, Brightness Dragon. It's the unlocker, so you can even call it in case you have some locked cards. You can use Planetal Dragon to unlock them by calling Brightness Dragon. His ability, apart from the unlocking, is Limit Break 4. Once per turn, you Counter Blast 1 to after your rear guards. It's plus 5,000 power until at the end of the turn. It's a much easier Soul Saver Dragon. So it's decent if you have to ride into it. It's 11k base, so at least it has that going for it. But you probably use it to unlock cards most of the time. And then you got Ashley Reverse, Broken Heart Jewel Knight. Ashley Reverse. Limit Break 4, once per turn, Counter Blast 1 and lock 2 Jewel Knights to retire one of your opponent's front row and call a Jewel Knight from your deck. It did get nerfed in that it has to lock 2 Jewel Knights, which is unfortunate, but it's fine. And then obviously it has a cross ride with Ashley. Ashley Reverse, it's really good. The fact that it can retire front row and call whatever Jewel Knight you want, it's going to be really good, especially against matchups where maybe you run out of Grade 2s or those games where you just don't draw into your intercepts. You can at least call it with Ashley Reverse. And if you pair with Miranda, you can actually also try to fish for PGs with her search effect. And then we got basically what I like to call Julia 2.0. Sprout Jewel Knight Camille. Limit Break 4 to start your main phase. Counter Blast 1 to call a Jewel Knight from your deck. That's good. It's really good. The effect I was talking about was this one. Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle. Your units with the ability, if you have 4 more Jewel Knight Rearguards, require 1 less count. That is super good. Any card, like Tracy, for example, or even like your Filter, or your Starter, all of those only require 3 Jewel Knights instead of 4 if you have this unit on your field. And that is super good because that means you can lock 2 units and still have Tracy's to 12k attack potential. And that's just super good. And then it's 14k attacker on Vanguard to boot when it's on Vanguard Circle, obviously. So Camille's just Julia 2.0 in my opinion. It's really good. And then you have Knight of Forever Hector. During your turn, plus 4,000 power if it's Vanguard. Mystical Hermit, once you attack it to Vanguard, one of your units get plus 8,000 power. The fact that it's Rearguard Circle as well makes this card a little bit better. Probably won't see too much play of it outside of budget. Alright, and let's real quick go over the 3 cards for Nova Grappler that even though we already did. Bear Down Samurai and Daredevil Samurai both have the same effect. When your unit stands in your battle phase, if your Vanguard is in the Shura, this unit gets plus 2,000 power. Do not sleep on the Shura Kaiser. It is amazing, especially if you pair with some of the old support. Like if you pair with Mon Blaukugler, you have an explosive break right turn. And you don't even need to break right because you can just run regular Ashura and just the Mordor Ashura and you're still set. So whichever path you go, you can't go wrong. These cards, they might not have gotten a lot of support, but it's good support. You got a Mordor Ashura Kaiser. Limit Break 4, once per turn, when your drive check reveals a grade 3 or a Samurai, this unit gets following ability until the end of battle. So it can't heal out of it. Basically, that's what those types of effects means. And then at the end of that battle, Counterblast 2 and discard 2 cards from your hand to stand this unit and one of your rear guards and draw 2 cards. And this unit gets plus 10,000 power. Once again, these effects are really good and can be very explosive if you want to run Mount Blaukugr as well. It's just insane how many attacks you can get and how much power you can scale up to. So defensives pretty much don't matter. And Assured Kaiser is just really good. Obviously, as a cross ride with the normal Assured Kaiser, so you're going to be wanting to get that going as well for that defense. All right, next up, Narukami. Spirit Beat Eradicator Nata. Put this unit into your soul to have one of your units get the following ability until the end of the turn. When your opponent's reguard is retired by your card effect, it gets plus 3,000 power. Decent. Maybe see some use, but Narukami has a lot of good starters to choose from, so it's going to be tough pickings. Deadly Eradicator Ue. I love this card for Narukami. For a little bit. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, put this unit into your soul to retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards. Easy cost, fuels your Phoenix place, and it sets up a lot of cards like Bowing Reverse, it sets up Bowing Sword, it sets up Gauntlet, it sets up Steve. It really pairs up with a lot of the Narukami Vanguards that we have. So I don't see this not being a staple, and at least a couple, minimum 3 cards in the deck, in my opinion. Dragon Dancer Agatha. We got another Dragon Dancer. So when your opponent's rear guard is retired by your card effect, Soul Blast one that one of your other units get plus 3,000 power. Once again, if you want to run this card, Ue fuels that as well. Soul Blast. Super good. Super fire. Don't sleep on it. And you got Wyvern Strike Zalas. Rest it to have one of your units get plus 2,000 power. Can see some use in some decks, but don't see it being used too often. And you got Partner Edge Dragoon. Reguard Circle when you attack by a unit with Limit 4, this unit boosted its Vanguard, CB2 to draw. So we're seeing more of these. Pretty expensive, but you have plenty of count charges if you want to run it. Plasma Scimitar Dragoon. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, this unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn. Similar to that other gold unit that we discussed prior to this, but don't see it seeing too much use. There's plenty of other grade 2s you can run. Gravity Bolt Dragon. When your drive check reveals a grade 3, so you want to retire one of your opponent's front row and get plus 1,000 power. It could be used. It's going to be really situational, though. You either have to use snipers or you're going to be retiring non-intercepts front rows. But it isn't a locker, so it might see some use. And then you got Tempest Bolt Dragon. Limit Break 4, Counterblast 3 to retire all, including yours, rear guards. During your turn, this unit gets plus 2,000 power for each open rearguard circle, including yours, so it can become a very big unit. And him and Twin Thunder Dragon both got this effect. When this unit is retired by your card effect, draw a card. That way, even if you're having to retire units from the CB3, you're still getting some resources back. And then you could potentially be swapping out a grade 3 that you drew into with an intercept, a booster, or even a PG. You got Twin Thunder Dragon, Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2, and discard 3 Eradicators to retire all rear guards, and then if 3 or more will retire, gets plus 2 critical. This card, a lot of people like to think of it as basically Eradicator version of Armor Break. They both have the same problem where you're having to discard 3 cards from your hand, but then you don't get anything back for it. The only benefit it has is that if you happen to retire either it or Tempest Bolt, you can draw cards from their effects. So that's good, but it could have been better. When your opponent's rear guard is retired by a card effect, it gets plus 2,000 power. So it's going to be a big unit because of how many rear guards can be retiring. But once again, it's very expensive. It's not as expensive. It's only CB2, but the discard 3 and the fact that those 3 cards have to be Eradicators is what's gonna probably hurt this card. Ignition Dragon, however, it's actually pretty good. Never break 4 when wrote upon CB1 to have your Vanguard get plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn, and then retire 2 of your opponent's rear guards at random with priority to back row. Then, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, countercharge 1. Pair this with Vowing Sword, or with Tempest Bolt, or with Steve, or with Vowing Reverse. It's basically a really good break rate for just nuking your opponent's board. So don't sleep on it. Chainsaw Boy is very good boy indeed. And then if you have more rear guards than your opponent, it's a 14k base. Pretty straightforward. You got Thundering Bow Zahara. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, countercharge 1. Oh, you got a countercharger in the grade 3. So if you care for it, you can run it. And now let's go into Kagero. Dragon Knight Sadek. When your opponent's rear guard is retired by a card effect, put this unit into your soul to retire 1 of your opponent's rear guards at random with priority of back row. Probably still running Conroe, let's reveal. Diablo Drive Dragon. A 10k attacker for Dauntless. Pretty good. And then you got a Soul Blast booster for Dauntless. So you Soul Blast 1 when it boosts the Dauntless unit and it gets plus 4,000 power. Pretty straightforward. Dominate Drive Dragon. 12k attacker for Dauntless. Straightforward once again. Dragon Knight in a shot. When a unit attack hits, CB2 to draw a card. A lot of people wasn't asking for these. And the fact that we didn't get, I think it's Calamity Tower Wyvern, the Soul Blast 2 to draw a card unit, the grade 1, probably going to mean that the shot gets a lot more use than we thought it would get because we have more draw power. And if we want it, we're going to have to use this card instead of the Soul Blast unit that I wanted. Damn it, Bushi. Why making us wait? It's not busted, I promise. And then Dragon Knight Razor. That specifies the grade 2. Interesting. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, the unit gets plus 10,000 power. Ah, okay, it's one of those units. Meh. Steel Dragon Georgette. This card is a sleeper in my opinion. Learn Break 4. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, it gets plus 5,000 power for each of your opponent's grade 2 rear guards, and if they have 2 or more, it gets plus 1 critical. And it's an unlocker. So you can get those attacks in regardless. So, why do I say this is a sleeper? Because if you pair this with Dauntless, who just got buffed, by the way, to only discard 2 instead of discard 3, you're essentially attacking with a restanding crit. And all that requires you to do is run the grade 2 Intercept Sealer. And that's pretty easy to slot into in the Steel Dragon deck. So don't sleep on Georgette. Oh, that's all I'm saying. Because I'm certainly not. I love my Steel Dragons. And then we got my favorite boy, Dauntless Dominate Reverse. Then break 4 once per turn, you lock a rear guard to get the following ability. When your drive check reveals grade 2 or less, retire 1 of your opponent's grade 1 rear guards. And then when an opponent's rear guard is retired by a card effect, it gets plus 5,000 power. And it's a Crossroad with Dauntless. This card is super slept on, in my opinion. It's a 13k base. It can be a cross break ride. It's restanding on the break ride turn. And it's just retiring their boosters, which are pretty hard to come by in most decks. And the fact that you're going to be sitting on cross ride numbers means that those boosters are that much more important for them being able to hit numbers against you. So the fact that they can retire those is just super good. And I think people are sleeping on it. I'm personally going to love it. I'm going to play the heck out of it, make it work. Because I'm tired of people calling it Depression Dragon. And then Flame Dance Agni. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if this unit's battle opponent's power is 12,000 or greater, it gets plus 10,000. Okay, so it hits numbers, but it's only a Vanguard circle. On rear guard, it's just plus it's a 12k attacker on rear guard circle. So meh, but it's not a decent budget Vanguard. It's not a bad budget Vanguard. That's what I was trying to say. Dragon Knight Geral. During your turn, it gets plus 4,000 power. And we already went over gold, so let's skip over that. Next up, we have Genesis. Battle Maiden, Ameno Huakari. When this unit boosts, Soul Charge 1. Oh, easy Soul Charge. Whether or not you run it, it's going to be dependent. It's going to be preference on which starter you want. I feel like a couple people might still prefer Cinnamon, I think is her name. And you got Apple Witch Cider. When placed, your Vanguard gets the following ability. During your turn, opponent's turn, your activated sentinels and retired rear guards are put into your soul instead of your drop. So that's really good because if you happen to draw into your Chamomiles or your Melissas, you can, and your opponent's very keen on retiring units, they instead just get added to the soul, and then you have all those units ready for your explosive soul turns. Goddess of Union, 10k attacker if you have a Regalia, pretty straightforward. And Orde now was basically those other units we saw, but it can remove an Angelica or a Minerva instead of just an Ashley or a Ezel, or a Gancelot, sorry. And you got the Myth Guards. During a turn, when a Kenar is put into your drop zone from your soul, plus 2,000 power. These can see some use. I can definitely see them being used in some instances as a tech card. I don't know how many you'll be able to run, considering how many good grade ones you have, but in a budget build, it'll be super good. Sirius, Mythguard Sirius. During your turn, if Mythguard Orion is in your soul, it gets plus 3,000 power. Orion's a grade 2, so if the grade 2 is in your soul, this card becomes a 9k unit. Twilight Regalia Hesperus. When this unit sprints your drop zone, your Vanguard gets the following ability. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, retire when your opponent's reguard. So we got more Regalia support, and this card gives Genesis the ability to now retire units, which is super good. You got a 12k attacker for Regalia in Goddess of Trees Jupiter. And Orion, we just mentioned, he's basically the same thing as Sirius, but if Sirius is in your soul, it becomes an 11k unit. Pretty straightforward. And you got Denebola, Mythguard Denebola. During your turn, when Denebola is put into your drop zone, plus 3,000 power. So once again, these Mythguard cards probably won't see use in like Minerva decks and stuff like that, but in budget Genesis decks, probably most likely going to be used because they're pretty good in units. And now we've got Omniscience Regalia Minerva. When break 4 once per turn, when unit attack, gets the following ability until the end of battle. At the end of that battle, Soul Blast 3 and Counter Blast 1, and discard 2 cards from your hand to stand it, draw 2 cards, and get plus 5,000 power. This is stupid good. Minerva is amazing. It's not expensive. Soul Blast 3 is nothing for Genesis. Counter Blast 1 is cheap as fuck. And yes, you're discarding 2 cards, but then you're immediately drawing them. So it's like, it's a win-win. Minerva is just amazing. And if you're soul blasting the units that you retire, I forgot her name, Hesperus, it's also retiring your opponent's board. Minerva is just literally has everything. It has retire, it has multi-attack with Chamomile and Melissa, it has deck ditting with grape and oranges. It's just amazing. Genesis is really good. I'm actually super happy about the triple rare or the Genesis event because that means I'll actually be able to build Minerva because I can just farm out my missing Chamomiles and then focus my crafting materials on Minerva and Angelica. Oh, I'm so happy about that event. You have no idea. And then Regalia of Wisdom Angelica, when Limberate 4, when wrote upon, Soul Blast 3 to have your Vanguard get plus 10,000 power. And you look at the top 4 cards and add 2 to your hand. Simple break ride, but really good. Pretty cheap with Soul Blast 3 as well, so you can start getting those effects off early. And then it Soul Charges 1 when it attacks a Vanguard with 4 plus 1,000 power. So it still Soul Charges itself. Angelica is really good. And obviously, I forgot to mention, Minerva is cross ride numbers with Angelica, so we got another cross break rides. A lot of those in this set. And you got Goddess of Law Justitia. Then break 4 once per turn, Soul Blast 3, get 3 reguards, get plus 5,000 power. And when placed on knock 1 cards. This card's meh. There's a lot of great things you can run. But you can, I do see it being run as a tech card in case you run into Link Joker. How many you run is really going to be up to you. Mythguard Procyon. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, Soul Blast 6 to stand all of your Mythguard rearguards. Okay. Yeah. This is where the Mythguards get really good. Because it's just really kind of busted. for a budget deck. Mythguards is going to be a really interesting tech deck to run. I'm curious how many people will actually give it a try. And second ability, Counterblast 3 to put 6 Mythgard cards with different card names from your deck into your soul. You may put 5 or less. Alright, so this, you don't have to put 6, but you can. And what this is basically doing is it's setting up all your Mythgard effects to activate. And that's super good. Because they all require specific cards to be in the soul, and this just guarantees that they are going to be in the soul. And you got Goddess of Four Seasons, Persephone. Then break 4, Soul Blast 6 to look at top 3 cards from your deck. Add a card to your hand and put the rest at the top of your deck in any order. So you can stack triggers while adding cards. And then when placed, put 3 cards with the same card name as one of your cards from your drop zone or your deck into your soul party to drop zone. This is basically the Ragey effect, but for Genesis. And that means you can do early soul blasting with some of your oranges, your grapes, your melissas, your chamomiles, or you can even do filtering, and then still be able to add them back into the soul, recycle all those units, and be able to have them be able to use them again later, which is really, really good. Persephone is going to be an amazing card. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, Soul Charge 1, it gets plus 1000 power. So it's like Ragey, but for Genesis. Except it adds cards to the deck instead of getting crits. Really good. I like Persephone. And then you got another Mythgard in Formal Halt. During your turn, it gets plus 4000 power. But it has to be Vanguard. So it's pretty underwhelming. But in a Mythgard deck, it could work. Maybe. You have a lot of different options for Mythgards for that. But yeah, that is it for set 15. A lot of good cards, a lot of good support for even Novas, who only got 3 cards. Still a really explosive deck. So yeah, definitely look forward to this set. I'm excited to play with a lot of these decks and excited to showcase them for you guys. But for now, that is all. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe. A lot of you that do watch aren't subscribed, so I'm watching you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time. Jane.